Introducing your new best friend.
People, let me tell you about my best friend.
All right, so Child's Play 2019. One of the positives from this movie, and there are positives, one of the positives from this movie is that the original voice of Chucky, the doll, and the original Charles Lee Ray, I think was the murder guy, the serial killer guy that became, so anyway, Child's Play from 1988, let's start there. Child's Play from 1988 was about a serial killer named Charles Lee Ray, who was voiced by Brandon Dourif, I think the guy's name is, the actor's name, and he played Charles Lee Ray in the original movie. And Charles Lee Ray, he gets sent to death row, gets executed, and somehow a mystical spell, magic thing happens, and it takes his soul, and it puts his soul into the body of a toy doll, which is a Chucky doll. I think it's called My Buddy. It's not called My Buddy. My Buddy was the real thing. My Buddy. I can't sing that, copyright claims. And I think it was put into the body of a Chucky doll. And so Charles Lee Ray is basically this murderous serial killer in the in the body of this adorable little doll. And the movie, like I said before, was made in 1988, and this is long after, you know, the successes of actual horror movies like Halloween and Friday the 13th and the first 2 or 3 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. This is way after those movies turned into camp, you know, and they're just ridiculous, and they become like a parody of themselves. So by 1988, you know, Chucky comes along, and it's a very 80s idea. What if a serial killer gets executed and his soul is put into the body of a doll? Print it. So, and there was a lot of that going on in the 80s too, where a lot of ghost stories and like people being possessed by demons, and just a lot of mystic art stuff was going on. It must have been all that cocaine people were doing in the 80s. They were just seeing all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so that's the original story, and Andy was the name of the kid also in the original one, and Andy owned Chucky, and Chucky killed people for some reason in the 80s. I don't remember why, probably because it was a serial killer. But anyway, the original premise of the original movie was ridiculous, because you're like, oh, it's just a little doll, you know, just kick it out the way. Why? And then the movie's over. It's like, oh, all right, you hit it with your vacuum cleaner, and that's it. Movie's done. You know what I mean? You get a big fan and you just kind of hold it right there, and it's like, it's a doll. Why is it scary? Why is it supposed to be scary? And it's like, it's not. And so this movie does a good job of kind of riffing on that original premise, in that it doesn't try to really be scary, but it's not as unintentionally funny either, I think, as the original one. And that's where it doesn't meet really the horror, the comedy, or the horror comedy bar that I think it was going for. I really couldn't tell. So in this 2019 version, instead of Chucky being possessed by a serial killer's soul, Chucky is instead like an Alexa, right? It's an integrated device that can communicate with TVs and phones and cameras and anything created by this company called something, I can't remember the name of the company, but anyway, it's like an Alexa that moves, and it's done really well to begin with, because Chucky does look very creepy. Just the expression on its face, it's very, very creepy looking doll. It's kind of unsettling how creepy the doll looks at first. And the idea, I think, was pretty cool, you know, having the doll being able to integrate itself with all the electronics in the house from this one company, because it's like if Alexa were to be given a body, and it's like it's got your Fire Stick and I guess whatever the hell else Amazon makes, but it's kind of the same premise. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty neat idea. So Andy in this movie is still a child, and his mom's a single mother. I don't know if she was a single mother in the original one, but his mom's a single mother, and they're in this like crappy apartment, and paper boy from Atlanta. He is a detective who lives down the hall from them, and he's a pretty nice guy. And so Andy's mom works at like a big box store. It's around Christmas time, or no, Andy's birthday's coming up. So Andy's birthday's coming up, and his mom is trying to look for a toy for him, and the toy that she finds is one of these Buddy dolls that gets returned from a customer, and it's all beat up. And so she takes it out of the store and gives it to Andy. But the thing about this particular Buddy doll is that when the movie opens up, it starts off in Vietnam at one of these toy producing factories in Vietnam, and everyone there looks looks just miserable. And I don't mean to laugh about the conditions that actually take place in some of these places in the real world, but just the movie just makes them look extra miserable and extra just depressed. And so they're on this assembly line, and this one Vietnamese guy, he's kind of just staring off into blankness, right? And his supervisor comes over, he's calling him worthless, and it's just so over dramatic, and he's like slapping the guy around, he's calling him worthless, and you're good for nothing, finish this and you're fired. And so the guy reprograms this Buddy doll, and one of the things that stuck out to me was like he's taking off the safety guards and language barriers, and then there's one setting called violence, which he has like violence prohibited, like removed. And I thought to myself, like, why the hell does this little doll have a setting for violence? Why is that there? It's supposed to be like a child's toy. Why does it need a violence setting that can be turned on and off? It was just so bizarre. At that point, now this is in the first 5 minutes of the movie, so I thought it was going to be pretty funny because of that. I was like, why would their child's toy have a specific setting for violence that you can turn on and off? But this guy turns it off, and then he ends up, suiciding himself, and the doll gets sent to America and winds up in the hands of Andy via his mom as a birthday present. And so the doll basically works, I guess, like Alexa or like a lot of AI does, and it learns through interactions with whoever, right? But this Buddy doll thing, it's like said to imprint itself on a best friend. So I guess like a child, really, like a baby animal. The person that it sees kind of first and interacts with the most, it imprints itself onto them. And so Buddy becomes incredibly obsessed and interested in Andy's happiness, right? And one of his catchphrases is, "Are we having fun yet?" That's one of Buddy's catchphrases, which is, so Andy is at first a little bit reluctant about hanging out with it because it is a doll, and Andy's close to being a teenager, looks like. And so he's like, yeah, I don't want a doll. Oh, this is for like little kids. But then when he sees that, when he hears that Buddy is able to curse, he's like, whoa, this doll's pretty cool. And then when he sees that Buddy's able to do things that are technically prohibited, like wielding a knife, which I don't know why that setting would be there to begin with, but Andy starts to become a little bit more relaxed around Buddy. But then his mom is played by Aubrey Plaza, which I guess she does an okay job in here. The acting everyone's acting in here is all right. Andy is like the main focus of the movie, so his acting is a little bit more on display, and he does a pretty decent job, I think, as a kid actor. So props to him for being able to emote a lot of times, especially when he was coming off as being paranoid later on in the film. He does a really good job. But anyway, so Aubrey Plaza's boyfriend is some guy named Shane, and Shane is a real asshole, and I don't just believe that, but Andy believes that, and the movie shows you how much of an asshole this guy is. And so he's like a typical mean stepdad, but he's also married. He's got his own wife and kids off somewhere else. Aubrey Plaza doesn't know this, of course. And so Shane is mean to Andy. Andy doesn't like Shane. So then Buddy hears this, and Buddy doesn't like Shane, right? And Andy eventually names Buddy Chucky. And so that's where the whole connection is with the original story. Andy had a cat, and the cat scratched Andy one time, and it made Andy bleed, and that made Andy mad. So then Chucky was mad at the cat. Chucky eventually kills the cat, which, all right, weird. And Andy's reaction to that was like kind of horrified and mortified, and it's a shocking thing to see, right? But he doesn't tell the mom, hey, this doll killed our cat. Right then and there, it could have been like, yeah, take a photo. He's got a cell phone with a picture with a camera on it. Hey, look what Chucky did. Killed the cat. We got to get it out of here. End of movie, roll credits. But no, he doesn't do that. He keeps the doll. He meets some friends, and they learn about Chucky's kind of independence, and they think it's all cool and everything. And so it goes on, and Shane becomes even more of an asshole to Andy, and Andy becomes so angry one night, and he says, I wish Shane would just go away. And so Chucky hears this, of course, records Shane's anger, and then Chucky takes it upon himself to actually follow Shane home, and then Shane gets killed in his like front garden or something by some kind of a gardening tool. It's like an electric tiller, and it digs into the top of Shane's head. And then Chucky, why would he do this? Chucky takes a melon from Shane's patch, chops Shane's face off, puts that face on the melon, wraps a bow tie around it, and then puts that melon with Shane's face onto Andy's dresser, so that when Andy wakes up, he sees this thing. And I don't know why the toy would take such extreme measures, but it was meant to be funny, I think, at that point, and it just didn't make sense. Why it would just automatically go to murdering the guy? I guess I don't really get that. But then ripping his face off and then bringing it back to the kid's room when clearly the kid did not want to see the guy at all. So that was kind of like a gory scene just for the sake of being gory. Anyway, it goes from there where Andy finally is like, I don't want this doll anymore. You got to get out of here. You got to go get away from me. And he uses his other two friends to kill Chucky by taking his Tony Stark power source out of his chest. And so you think that's the end of the movie, but of course it can't be, because there's got to be a final fight. There's a janitor guy or superintendent of their building, and he's a creepy guy. He's got cameras in people's bathrooms and stuff. Real creepy guy. Andy and his friends kill Chucky, and they dump him down the trash chute. This janitor guy finds him, and he brings him back to life with a car battery. And of course Chucky eventually kills him with a table saw or something. Yeah, I think it was a table saw, which is, I don't think it's not strong enough to cut through human bone, but this one was, and it like chopped the guy in half or 4 pieces or whatever. But it kind of turned away from that gruesome scene. So there and again, it's like, it's not really a horror movie, it's not really a gore movie, because when that guy died, it kind of just did one of these. He's like hanging there by a pipe, and Chucky uses his Alexa moves and makes the water in the pipe get to be beyond too hot. So then the guy loses his grip, and Chucky turns on the saw, and the guy falls down. But when he falls down, camera cuts away, and then you see just blood splattering on the thing. So it doesn't really show anything. So again, it's like almost gory, but then not so much. Chucky starts to now hunt down Andy, because I guess he's now just full-on serial killer or something. I don't know. But he ends up, a bunch of movie goes on, and they end up meeting him again, and there's a launch of a Buddy 2, which was a second model of the same doll. And it's a big like Black Friday thing going on at his mom's store, and all these people are rushing in, and Chucky somehow he gets control of all the items in that store. Drones, he's put like razor blades on the drones. He's put razor blades in place of the drone's actual blades for flying. How do they still fly? Nah, whatever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, all these people are in there now, and they're waiting for this launch of this new Buddy toy. Before the whole thing with the store happened, Chucky had actually killed Paperboy's mom, who had taken this company's automated driverless car, and she was just gonna go down the bingo. I don't know why Chucky didn't like her, because she called Andy her best friend, and Chucky can't have none of that. One best friend, and that's me, Chucky. Everyone else gotta die. So he ended up killing her in the car, and by taking control of the car, and he ended up killing her. And so Paperboy then thinks that Andy was somehow involved in the murders, because the face of Shane was found in the dumpster next to the building. And here's the other thing, was when when Andy told his buddies about the face, well, they saw the face and they're trying to get rid of it. They wrapped this melon with the face on it in like wrapping paper, like decorative wrapping paper that you would use for Christmas. And then they were gonna take it down to the shoot, but then Andy lied and said he was gonna give it to Paperboy's mom. And so his mom forced him to give it to her. And so she didn't bother to know what it was. And it was drawn out for like no reason. You know, they could have just said, oh, it's just some trash we found and just tossed it. Or maybe just not say anything and walk out the door instead of talking to the mom. But who needs consistency in this thing, right? So anyway, the Paperboy's mom had died and he thought that Andy killed her or had something to do with the death. And this is all happening in the store. Paperboy arrests Danny during this Black Friday thing, and he thinks that Andy has something to do with his mom's death and the face on the melon. And so at that moment, that's when Chucky decides to take over, and the drones are flying around everywhere, chopping everyone up. And then the other buddy dolls come to life, because why not? And then it's like pandemonium, and Chucky decides to somehow takes control of the store. I don't know if the store itself was also made by this company. So, but he starts lowering the security doors in the store in order to trap everyone. A bunch of people escape, some people get trampled. Again, almost horror, but not so much. Almost funny, but not so much. And so, you know, a bunch of junk happens. Paperboy ends up getting stabbed by one of the drones. He goes down, but of course, I thought he was dead at that point, but then I was like, is he gonna be dead? Nah, he's probably gonna come back later on. So somehow, Aubrey Plaza, you know, Andy's mom, somehow gets tied to a forklift and to the blades of a forklift, and her mouth is like taped shut, and she's all beaten up, and I'm like, who the hell did this? The doll? So I was like, how are you? How? like Chucky's like this big, right? So she's standing, and like Chucky's recording her and showing the footage to Andy on the TV screens in the store, and I'm just like, what the hell is this now? Right? But so anyway, Andy finds his mom, and you know, there's one final battle. Chucky's somehow able to knock Andy out, and you know, they fight a little bit, and Andy is able to get his mom free, and Paperboy is not dead when Andy's about to get killed by Chucky. Chucky gets shot in the head by Paperboy. Again, the doll's like this big. When Andy is struggling with Chucky, and Chucky's got a knife to him, he's like, oh, are we having fun yet? I forget what the catchphrase was. So in order to sort of hold him at bay, Andy starts singing Chucky's song, which I don't remember what it was. Something about we'll be friends forever. But anyway, that messes up Chucky for just long enough for Paperboy to come out of nowhere and shoot Chucky in the head, because he is a human, a robot. He is a robot, and his vital sign, he has a brain, and I don't know why, but that stopped Chucky for that moment. And someone cuts Chucky's head off. So Chucky was the Highlander, and I don't know what the hell was that about. But everyone gets out alive, and the friends take Chucky's body out to the alley. I'm guessing at the end of this, behind this store, and they all go like Office Space on this thing. They're like just taking turns hitting them with a bat, and I could just hear back up in this bitch with the resurrection. They're just like had that song started playing in the background when they were doing that, I would have just busted out laughing. I'd have left the movie with like a huge smile on my face. It'd have just been like, okay, you saved it. But they didn't do that. No resurrection, you know, none of that. It's not a good movie. It's really not. Just go see Toy Story 4 instead, and have fun with that. This is just boring. I think it was trying to go for some kind of a social commentary on how dependent people are on their devices being linked to one thing, and I guess I could get that, but that point wasn't really made strong enough in the movie, because had Chucky been able to take control of more dangerous things, like a lawnmower or a tractor or or a cow or the lights. But because had Chucky been able to take over more things or just interact with more things easier, I think it would have made him seem more powerful than he actually was. Because again, the doll's like this big, right? It's like, come on, right? Come on. It's not a good movie. Not a good movie at all. This is just, it's not good. Take care of yourselves.